Guys, no, we're going to start in a minute. So please come into the musalla. Please come into the musalla. Number 2, guys, you guys can't be going outside and nobody's going into the basement, all right? You guys are staying up here, all right? All right.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. It's not 3 a.m. yet, so let's try that again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. MashaAllah, MashaAllah. So I want to first start off by saying thank you to the Masjid's administration and for the people that have put this together. Brother Saif and Brother Munis specifically, who reached out to invite us back. For those of you who may have not recognized me, my name is Brother Ayaan Rahman. I actually previously came over here to be able to talk about doing a dawah workshop to teach about the intricacies of that process and how do you interact with people to be able to teach them about dawah and how you properly give it. Today, though, we're here on a different occasion, and that is with this organization which is called the Future Leaders of Islam. Myself and Brother Shahir Saud started Future Leaders of Islam with a very simple goal. And the goal was, at one point, I was everyone's age here. So most of you guys are what? How old are you? How old are you? 16. How old are you, young man? The one laying down? 10. Right, so I'm 25 right now. And so at one point, I was just your age. But there was a difference. When I was your age, I didn't have this amazing masajid that was built, that you guys see here today. When I was your age, I was one of the only people in my own friend group, within my own masajid, within my own school that was coming to the masjid, and I would always say, where are my peers? And because of that, I felt as though I had lost connection with my Muslim identity. And because of that, it was hard for me to understand what it meant to be Muslim in this country. And so because of that exact question and issues, we started this organization, which is called the Future Leaders of Islam. The goal here is to remind you guys that you see so many things online, you see so many different celebrities and figures, but the reality is, you yourself can become the leader, the inspiration that you so desperately thrive to see. And that starts within your own Muslim community. Now, we have a really interesting topic today, but before we get into that, I want to ask a very, very simple question. How many of you guys enjoy looking at superhero movies? What's your favorite superhero, young man? Spider-Man. Who else? Who else loves watching superheroes? Young man in the red. You. Spider-Man. Come on, you can't take his answer. That's cheating. You also like Spider-Man? What's yours? Batman. Right? What about you? Yes. Spider-Man. Man. MashaAllah. So, everyone here has favorite superheroes. Well, let me ask you this. How many of you guys have favorite celebrities? People that you like, streamers, things like that. What about you? Huh? Austin Reeves. What about you, young man in the blue? Mr. Beast. What about you? LeBron James. What about you? Frankie Muniz. Okay, very different. Yes, you with the hand up. Yes. Oh, it's okay, it's okay. So we've talked about your favorite superheroes, we talked about your favorite celebrities. What makes these people something to look up to? Why is it that you guys like Spider-Man so much? Those of you who said Spider-Man, why do you like Spider-Man? Because he shoots webs. What else? Those of you who named your celebrities, you said who said Mr. Beast? And he was drafted to a really good team. These people have certain qualities that we look up to. They have certain associations. They're associated with the Los Angeles Lakers, or they're associated with being on those favorite superhero teams like the Avengers and things like that. They have an identity that you can relate to and that you enjoy being able to live in. Yet, why do we look at these people, these characters that are fictional, and sometimes these celebrities that don't represent reality as people that we should look up to? Now, if I asked you something about Spider-Man, I think some of you would be able to tell me his entire life story from every single different universe that's possible. If I asked you to tell me about Austin Reeves, I'm sure you'd be able to tell me everything about him. What breakfast he ate in middle school, things like that. But in Islam, we have a very, very rich history of Muslim leaders. And these Muslim leaders are types of people that you would believe were mythical creatures when you hear their stories. People who are able to carry the door weighing thousands of pounds. The types of people that were able to go out and fight in the name of Allah without any fear in their hearts. And one of those people today is exactly who we'll be talking about. The person who was given the title by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the sword of Allah. That was his title, crowned to him by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Who are we talking about today? Khalid ibn Walid. That is who we are talking about today. And if you guys want to learn a little bit about his story, it wasn't as sunshine and rainbow as many of us like to perceive. Yes, Khalid ibn Walid was born into a very powerful tribe called the Banu Muqsam clan. But make no mistake, despite being born into power, despite being born into wealth, he had all the excuses to be able to be as successful and do nothing. When we think about people who are privileged today, do we associate them with being the types to be laying down bricks, the types to be working in the sewers, the types to be doing construction? Is that what we associate privilege with? Do we associate privilege with those types of people? No. When you think about people who are privileged or who are rich, what kinds of jobs do we think about? What type of work do they do? The rich people. Think about your favorite celebrities. What do they do? Sports. Yes, you. Yes. Acting. All of these things are putting on a persona that's not even real. These are not things that are just the average Joe's job. So if you had the excuse of not being able to do the hard work, no one would want to do it. So imagine Khalid ibn Walid being born into wealth, being born into the most powerful tribe, yet he chose the idea of being able to go out and train for war. How many of you guys have trouble doing your homework? How many of you hate doing your homework? How many of you guys hate trying to stay after school for clubs and activities, maybe going and seeing your teachers? Do you guys like doing that? No. How many of you guys, if your parents said, hey, I need you to stay home tonight and read the Quran for the next hour, will make every excuse, Mama, I don't want to do this. I don't want to read tonight. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do this. I can see you. I can see in your eyes, your mom has to pull you by the ear to bring you to prayer sometimes. Yeah, I see it. Khalid ibn Walid was given every reason not to do what he did. Yet at the young age, he started learning the ability to execute the art of war. By his teenage years, he would go out and he would outride, outfight, and he would outwit men twice his age. And so when people think about who he was as a young man, he commanded respect by the will of steel and blood. He would be the type of man that when he spoke, people listened. No matter how strong they were, no matter how big they were, no matter how respected they were, they listened to Khalid ibn Walid at the youngest age. The type of man, when you saw him ride into battle, you had no choice. You would follow him into battle. Imagine how powerful that character had to be in order for people to say, I want to follow him into the strongest of battles and fight until my death. That was the influence that Khalid ibn Walid had. And so, before Islam, this was the reputation that he had established. And then all of a sudden in Mecca, whispers started growing of a man by the name of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he claimed that he had received revelation from the one true God. And he said to the people that you should come and accept this message and worship that one true God. Leave the way of your polytheist families, leave the way of your clans and your tribes. Instead, come and believe in Islam. Now Khalid ibn Walid, the man that stood by his tribe and fought for them with great honor and great dignity, said, I will not allow this to pass, not on my watch. So this man was chosen by the Quraysh, by the tribes, to be able to go out and end this thing that was called Islam. Now, let me ask you this. When the Battle of Uhud happened, everything that Khalid ibn Walid has seen and come to know about battle was being challenged. What happened during the Battle of Uhud? Were the Muslims winning that battle or were they losing that battle? They were winning at first, right? They were winning the battle. But then the Muslims made a grave mistake. What was the grave mistake that the Muslims made? They disobeyed the Prophet. Now what specifically did the Prophet, or by the order of Allah, did they do? What were they supposed to do? They stay put and not do what? And not to advance. What was there? What were they? Why did they even want to leave? That's it, right? They wanted to go and loot. There was war. They just won the war. They were like, look, none of our enemies survived. We can easily go and get this loot. Let's go ahead and take the spoils of war. Allah specifically told them not to do it, and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told them, don't leave your positions. But like sheep, they decided to escape the barn. And so when the sheep leaves the barn, there is a hungry wolf waiting that can smell the blood of those sheep. So when the sheep are out there, they're having fun, they think that they're safe. The wolf comes around the back. And this is the genius of the military man that Khalid ibn Walid was. The Muslims all of a sudden let their guard down, and so they took the opportunity to make the lightning fast move of flanking them. So while the sheep came out, the wolves ran around the back, and the wolves struck the unprotected Muslim army from behind with a force of a thunderbolt. Within seconds, you had seen the Muslims go from unanimously winning that war to being absolutely decimated, eviscerated, gone. This is what Khalid ibn Walid was capable of doing, changing history in the course of seconds with his sword. So now, if you're Khalid ibn Walid, job's done. You go home, the Quraysh, you've succeeded, you've done your thing. No way that the Muslims can return now. How will the Muslims return when the people that they just saw killed them and decimated them in large quantities of numbers? Your organization, your peoples were so small already. Now what is left? But then Khalid ibn Walid, upon returning, was not at rest. Why was that? Why could Khalid ibn Walid not rest? Because the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had taught the Muslims one thing, and that is the will of fighting does not come through your blade, it comes through your heart. And that is exactly what da'wah does. So the Prophet continued to spread the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to all the people, to all the tribes, and to all the different clans. And Islam grew back in numbers, And it didn't just grow to the same amount. It increased significantly. And so now all of a sudden, Khalid began to witness something that he couldn't explain. How is it that these people that I just absolutely smoked in the battlefield, now they coming back out here ready to fight one more time? Now imagine how crazy you have to be. You just got beat up for 11 rounds. You're basically gone at this point. But on the 12th round, you make a comeback. And so Khalid bin Walid sees this. He sees the faith. He sees the strong will of the Muslims. And he knows that this is not something that's normal. And so he started studying and he started learning. And after the Muslims decided to sign the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, Khalid ibn Walid decided to make the journey over to Medina. He has studied Islam at this point, and it was 629 CE, and he was well renowned as the greatest enemy. Forget about enemy of Islam. He was known as the greatest warrior that has ever lived on the planet. And he went to Medina, and he said to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I accept your message. I accept your Islam. I accept this as being true because there is no other way that you could explain the ability for people to continue to fight with such will, with so much determination, with so much love for something greater than themselves. And did you know what the Prophet Muhammad said? What did the Prophet Muhammad say? The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam looked at Khalid ibn Walid and said, I knew that a mind like yours could not stay away from the truth of Islam forever. Imagine that. You see your worst enemy. You see somebody that you hated your entire life. And they come to you and you said, bro, I knew you was going to come here. I already know that you were going to be able to accept this thing because you knew it was true. That was what the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam saw in his enemy. He saw the truth and he saw the light in him and welcomed him with open arms. So now Khalid ibn Walid, the bad gangster that was sent to kill and destroy the Muslims, is now our gangster. Right? He's on our side now. He's on our team. So let's talk about what he did once he accepted Islam. One of my favorite battles to listen to is a battle of Mutah, which would reveal what Khalid ibn Walid was truly known for and what he was truly made out of. How many people did the Muslims have in their army at that time? Who wants to take a guess? 10,000? Close. We're going the wrong direction. 12,000? We are going the wrong direction still. 3,000 people. 3,000 strong in the Muslim army. And the Byzantine army, the enemies of Islam, stood with 100,000 people strong. 100,000 people. Doing math, that's 30 to 1. How many of you guys play Fortnite? And y'all can't even do a 2v1. No, you cannot do a 2v1. Oh, okay. You think you can do a 2v1? All right, can you do a 30v1? No, you get smoked. So this is what the will of Khalid ibn Walid was. When the Muslims saw this man come with his armies, 3,000 people to 100,000 people, all of a sudden, the battle raged. The first 3 Muslim commanders of the battle were martyred in the battlefield. And like a true leader, Khalid ibn Walid didn't stand in the back. He drew his sword and he went to the front. He went to the front, and what happened next would be studied for centuries by people about military strategies. This is who Khalid ibn Walid was. And so he orchestrated one of the greatest plans that you could ever imagine. Who knows what that plan was? Who's familiar with the story? What did Khalid ibn Walid have the people do? He had his people split up, but there was a specific tactic that he had. Who knows what this tactic was? Flanking, close. I can't ask you, I know you know. Guerrilla warfare. So it's a combination of everything. What he decided to do is that he would send in his troops in groups. And what he would do is he would have one group go, and immediately behind that group would be another one. And that group all the way in the front would quickly run to the back, and then another group would come forward. So in sports, there's a thing called the Indian run, where you have the person in the front, he runs and he goes to the back, and the next person follows, the next person follows. So while you're running forward, you're running in circles. This is the concept that came from Khalid ibn Walid. Because what it looks like is that you have an infinite amount of soldiers. Now imagine this, you box. Now if you came to me and you sparred with me and I smacked you upside the head, and then you went to the back and you brought one of your other brothers and I smacked him upside the head, and now I got to keep doing this process, am I going to get tired? Because I'm going to be like, yo, what's going on here? Where are all these people coming from? That is what the Byzantine Empire saw. The Byzantine Empire saw these people and they kept fighting and fighting the Muslims, and they're like, we can't handle this anymore. And so at this time they had been convinced that the Muslims had reinforcements, and the Muslim army wasn't 3,000 but 300,000 visually. That's what they had perceived. And when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam described the genius of Khalid ibn Walid in this specific battle, Bismillah. And so when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam wanted to talk about Khalid ibn Walid in this specific situation, he said that they were advancing strategically. And that is when he was given the title that no other man could ever receive. Sayfullah, the sword of Allah. The unbreakable character of Khalid ibn Walid was given the unbreakable name of Sword of Allah. And so after the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed away, the Muslim Ummah was in absolute disarray. Unity was being questioned. To this day we see the ramifications of Muslims being able to decide who should lead the Ummah. What shall we do? Who do we follow? Everyone was lost. People started abandoning Islam. But one thing remained constant. That constant was the sword of Allah. Khalid ibn Walid did not let any of those situations, the politics, the social environment, change who he was. He stood as that unbreakable sword. And then in the Rida wars that would happen very soon, he moved his forces with such lightning speed across the Arabian desert that enemies thought that he had commanded multiple armies. They thought that this man had now conquered every single possible enemy that you could have known, and now he was commanding everyone at once. Khalid ibn Walid had created a cell phone, it seemed like, calling up everybody, getting them to battle, just the way that they were moving so quick. Now, I want you guys to fast forward now to 638 CE. Once again, Byzantine Empire, round 2. This time around, how many soldiers did the Byzantine Empire have? $300,000 minus 100,000, we get 200,000 Byzantine Empire soldiers. Now, how many did the Muslims have? Muslims are growing, man. Give us some credit at this point. We got 40K. We got 40K soldiers. This is right. We're doing a little better than we did beforehand. We're growing now. 40,000 soldiers. And on the night of that war, the Muslims are worried. Man, the Byzantine Empire, we beat them once, but they're back. Back bigger than ever, controlling everything. And we as Muslims are in chaos. What shall we do? And Khalid ibn Walid rode to the front once again, alone by himself. And he looked at each one of his campfires, and he said to his soldiers, I get chills when I think about this. He says, every step that you take forward tonight is a step towards paradise. Tomorrow we meet those who seek to extinguish the light of Allah. But remember, paradise lies beneath the shadow of swords. In the darkness of blood would you find the light of the Muslims. Because every single time we were persecuted, we came back. There was no holding the Muslim Ummah down at this time. And I say this with so much strength. strong feelings in my heart, to say it the least. Because even to this day, who does this remind you of? The people of Palestine. The people of Palestine have every reason not to believe in Allah. I hate it when I come to this country and I give da'wah and all I hear is non-Muslims say, oh, I don't believe in Allah because He causes pain and suffering. If anyone has a right to not believe in Allah because of that pain and suffering, it is the people of Palestine. The people of Palestine, no matter what, they know that under the shadow of the swords is the light to paradise. That is the strength of their hearts. So ask yourself this, when you think about the story of Khalid ibn Walid, know that our fight may not be with swords and guns, but our fight here is being the future leaders of Islam and standing up and representing something that's far greater than you or I, and that is a message of Allah. For 6 days that battle raged. The Syrian sun was glowing, it was people lighting people up on fire. Yet Khalid's tactical genius never sweat. He was never ever confused about what he would have to do, no matter how outnumbered his forces were. So when the Byzantine cavalry charged, Khalid's men stood. They stood on their mountains, and when the openings appeared, they charged like lightning. There's a specific term. Now, I'm not sure if this is historically correct, but I believe the term is mubarazun, which essentially means to charge in such a fierce manner that's unstoppable. I want you to imagine a stampede of 1,000 rhinos. Would you be able to stop 1,000 rhinos? Would you be willing to sacrifice your life? Now imagine that you see these Muslims, they're standing there, you're shooting up arrows, they take their shields out, you hit them, but you don't kill them, and all of a sudden with their shields that have arrows and their staff pointing out the front, they come charging at you like an angry bull. I wouldn't want to be in front of that. That is what the Muslims did, and they shattered the Byzantine lines. One by one, those lines fell. And the world had opened up to Islam. So if you're wondering why Islam grew from the east of Asia to the west of Europe, is because of the expansion and the strength of Khalid ibn Walid. Yet, at a certain point, Khalid ibn Walid was so good at winning wars and he was so good at being able to put down his enemies, people got concerned. There was a specific request that was made at a certain time. Who knows what that request was because of how good Khalid ibn Walid was doing on a battlefield? I know you know. What do you know? Umar ibn Khattab. Right, another very interesting character. If you want to say when it comes to powerful personalities, the only one that could probably mirror Khalid ibn Walid is Umar ibn Khattab. And he said to him, I need you to step down. I need you to step down because people are starting to believe that victory comes through you and not through Allah. Subhanallah. This is how powerful that this man was. Now imagine this. You're doing so well in school, you're doing so well in boxing, you're doing so well in whatever you achieve in this life, and someone tells you, hey, I need you to stop. Are you going to stop? If you're winning every single one of your boxing fights, and you're on your way to a championship, and your mother looks at you and says, honey, I need you to stop fighting, what are you going to say? You're not going to do it, man. I'm going to go win that championship. But this was the humility of Khalid ibn Walid. He respectfully looked at Umar ibn Khattab and said, I fight for Allah and not for Umar. So he accepted the offer of stepping down as the general and humbled himself as a normal soldier. Went from the greatest leader, the greatest conqueror, the greatest commander that the Muslim Ummah has ever seen to being just another one of the guys on the battlefield. How many of us would be willing to take such a step down, if you will? And in Umar's eyes, this was a step up because he got to continue to fight for the will of Allah. And so when the greatest general of that age started taking orders from his subordinates and people that he had previously led in battle, Think about that level of iman. The strength of his character. You mentioned Spider-Man. You mentioned your favorite celebrities. You mentioned all these things. These were fictional characters. This was a real man who bled like us, who gave tears like us, who had a humble approach to life. And he was the one that said, my faith and my iman, my love for this Islam is far greater than my love for myself. And I want you to end this talk with one of my favorite quotes from Khalid ibn Walid. And when I think about this, and you talk about real men, Rijal, you talk about the people that should be leaders within our society, how many people could say something so beautiful? I've charged into the battles seeking martyrdom, facing thousands of warriors who sought my death. I bear scars from countless swords and arrows, yet here I am, dying in my bed like an old man. There is no part of my body that doesn't bear a wound taken in the cause of Allah, either from a strike of a sword or from an arrow. Yet I die as camels die. In my blankets, may the eyes of the cowards never rest. How many of us make every excuse not to wake up in the morning? Fajr comes around. And we're saying, oh, just 30 more minutes. Let me hit that snooze button real quick. Yeah, I hit the snooze button, what happens? You wake up like 2 hours later. Subhanallah. They tell people that, look, I want you to come out tonight and pray Taraweeh and go and spend the night in the ibadah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Man, I got work at 5 a.m., 6 a.m. tomorrow. How am I going to sleep? I'll just pray Isha at home and I'll go right to bed. May the eyes of the cowards never rest. Sorry, my man. Remember that. And I have that ingrained on my wall. I have that in my head all the time. Because to me, what excuse do we have before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when the sword of Allah said that He would rather be given the opportunity to die on the battlefield in the most painful manner, and He said instead, here I am dying underneath blankets. Yet we choose to be under those blankets. We choose a life of simplicity. We choose the life of ease. So, in conclusion, Khalid ibn Walid's life wasn't all about history. It wasn't just about becoming a legendary warman. His true legacy is in his faith. It's in his Islam. It's in the message that each one of you young men here today can truly become a leader for your Muslim ummah. And you will one day be able to look back at your own lives and realize, be unstoppable in the pursuit of what you believe is right. If you see your Muslim brothers and sisters suffering overseas, don't just be a spokesperson. Be someone who changes that problem with their hands. If you're seeing that things in your own community are not the way that you want them to be, don't wait for the uncles to say, where are the youth? Where are the youth? Don't let them say that. Show them where you are. Stand up, put your hands up, and say that we are here to help. And when they say to you that you're too young, you don't know what you're talking about, remind them that the Sahabas were between the ages of 10 to 20. And they were the ones that had some of the greatest impacts in the world of Islam. Leadership does not wait for you. You strive to achieve it and it will find you. Do not hesitate. Some of us may, inshallah, one day become our modern Khalid ibn Walids. Maybe it's not in the battlefield, but it will certainly be for this Muslim ummah. So, inshallah, I make dua that all of you guys are able to take away from this talk, feel inspired that you can make change. I'm not saying that you're going to go home today and pick up the sword and start fighting. Please don't do that. That is not allowed, not in this country at least. But I do ask that you guys reflect upon your characters. I know you're young. Some of you 10, 9 years old, but some of you are in high school. The world needs leaders like you. Now, Uncle, Sheikhs, I see you guys. You guys got gray hairs. Right? Most of us got gray hairs. I say, mashallah, you got a beautiful gray beard. But I got a couple whites coming in too. I'm 25, but I got a couple whites coming in too. Don't look at me like I'm young. This is youth. Empower them. That's my message to you as well. Because the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he saw Khalid ibn Walid come to him, he gave him the ropes to the Muslim army. So today I ask you to give the ropes to your Muslim youth. Jazakallah khair and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So inshallah, the next thing that we have planned is with Brother Shahir. He's going to run us through some fun activities for you guys to do. And then after that, inshallah, we'll have another talk about how you guys get better involved in your communities.